So hello everyone, I am Joanna and I am a PhD student at UCL in Jeremy Skipper's lab. Today I would like to talk to you a little bit about language as a predictive marker of 5-MeO-DMT effects. So similarly to James, I'm also looking at language but using slightly different methods to analyze it. So I would like, before we jump straight in, I would like to start with actually taking a pause and thinking about what are thoughts. How do we know that we are thinking? How can we study thoughts? Through which medium do we convey them? What constitutes our narrative self and which modalities shape it? Do psychedelics alter this process? And if they do, how would we know? Of course, this is not what this presentation is about. I don't imagine I could provide answers to those questions here, but I think that this creates a useful framework to start thinking about what are we actually trying to do here. This brings us closer to the question that we are trying to answer, which is on the screen. How do we study the changing structure of thoughts induced by psychedelics? So, I am actually not the first person to think that language is important in shaping our perspective on the world. This guy over here, I think he seems to agree. We use language to direct our attention and arrange the world into categories, such as objects, colors, emotions, all of which shape our sensory experience. Many of us assume that we think in language, although actually maybe sometimes it's also images, emotions, other sensations, but definitely language is there and is key. Most importantly, language gives us a uniquely powerful tool. It enables self-referential thoughts, allowing us to organize memories and into higher level constructs, such as the narrative self, through the words such as I and me. But how do we gain insight into something so personal, so private, and usually indecipherable? How do I know that the way I think is anything like the way you think? And how does this shared capacity for language shape our sense of collective reality? Well, given that psychedelic experiences, especially those induced by 5-MeO-DMT, profoundly alter the way we think, feel, and process our inner experiences, it becomes vital to capture these changes as authentically as possible. So, of course, we cannot really go into people's heads and record what they're thinking straight away, but what we can do now with the new technologies is ask them to record voice notes that are unstructured. We don't ask them very specifically to talk about a certain topic, but more like a pure capture of stream of consciousness style of thoughts. So what we did in our study was give participants access to a chatbot on Telegram app, and this chatbot reminded them to submit voice journals. So every day they would send a voice note and very simple 1-minute recording capturing what they're thinking. The voice recording notifications came through for 7 days before and 7 days after the dosing, but we actually decided to include a slightly wider range of days of our data into the final analysis, because some people just happen to submit some entries outside of that period as well. Maybe some people missed some notifications and they submitted some later, or okay, so this is the slide with the timeline. Thanks. So now this is what I meant. The active notification days are in green, the others are in black. So you can see that we included a period of -14 to +14 days into our analysis. And how did we actually analyze that data? Okay, this is a little bit small, but hopefully you can see, in any case, I'm just going to explain what is on the figure. So first, participants send the voice notes, then we have automatic transcription in the app. So as soon as they submit the entry, it gets transcribed from voice to text. This is the prompt that it was shown to participants. It says, take a moment to reflect on your day and share your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Record a voice note for about 1 minute. So yeah, as you can see, it's not very structured. Then we developed 2 types of features. First, we had text-based features. This included 2 techniques. One is in the NLP world called bag of words approach. Here we look at word frequencies, and we just look at the predefined word categories and their occurrence in text. And then the second approach is using LLMs, so transformer-based metrics. Here we found a model that gives us a proxy of occurrence of different emotions in the text. And then interestingly, we also looked at voice. I'm going to talk about it more later, but from every recording, we extracted a lot of features which capture how the voice sounds. And then we used all of those to look at the pre-to-post changes, temporal patterns, and prediction of subjective measures, the acute experience and well-being. So the first set of results are the changes in language from before to after 5-MeO DMT. Again, we have quite a big figure, but hopefully you can see it. So the way you want to understand this figure is that you can see a line in the middle of it, and this line means 0. So every column that points toward the left, this means that in this specific word category, there was a decrease in this kind of vocabulary from pre to post. While, of course, if it points to the right, then it means an increase. And, of course, the significant stars are denoting significance. We got, first I would like to zoom into cognition. This was a category where we found the biggest differences and perhaps the most interesting one. So looking at the voice notes, the text of the voice notes from pre to post, we saw a significant increase in the number of cognitive vocabulary, which you can see some examples of here. Those are generally words that describe thinking processes. So people become more introspective, more reflective, more focused on what's going on in their minds, and we can actually measure it quantitatively, even from text. The second category that was quite interesting because of its sort of opposite pattern to the cognitive words are social words. So once again, we have an increase in cognitive words, and then a decrease in social words. So this kind of emphasizes this pattern even further. Social words include words such as social reference, so words describing other people, also interactions with other people, like talking and so on. So this is quite interesting. We thought that we should investigate this pattern in more detail. And we looked at the temporal, the temporal trajectories of those two specific word categories. And we can actually see that there is a very pronounced swap. You can see that the red line is below individual baseline before, and then it kind of overtakes the blue line after the experience. So really what happens is instead of talking about others, people start thinking, which is great. Another category where we found some significant differences was time. And this is actually quite interesting because we tend to think of psychedelics as, perhaps bringing us more into the present moment? Well, I guess certainly during the experience, but does it also happen after? And what we saw here is that the future focus, so all the words describing future, decreased. However, there was a significant increase in words describing past. Doesn't necessarily mean that psychedelics would make people obsess over their, past history and just ruminate. However, I think in the context of these voice notes, it might show us something intriguing, that from talking about their day and how they're feeling before the experience, people move to, there is a shift from looking forward to looking inward. The tense words, so the time words and cognition increase and so on. I think this all points to the fact that people first are looking forward to the experience, and then they start reflecting on the experience, and probably there is a process of active integration taking place. Another interesting finding was in the affect category. Affect basically means emotion. So, given the effects of psychedelics on mental health, we might expect that there will be, people will become more positive. But it's not quite as simple as that. When we looked at just the once again, word frequencies, we didn't actually see any change in affect. But with the more advanced model, which takes context into account rather than just the word frequencies, we looked at the breakdown of specific emotions. So here you can see results from another model. This is the LLM that we use to generate those probabilities. And while the overall amount of emotions in people's journal entries stayed relatively stable, the actual emotional makeup, so which emotions were present, has significantly changed. So we see that there is a decrease in those anticipatory emotions, both positive and negative, such as, for example, excitement, fear, and there is an increase in positive emotions that also point towards the integration process being active. And we have emotions such as realization, joy, and admiration that have increased. So it seems like, different methods might be good for capturing different things. And sometimes the word frequencies might be enough to see the general patterns, but the new ways of analyzing data can really tell us more about the experience itself. Okay, so moving to the second section, predictive value of language. So we have now discussed the changes pre to post, and the next stage of the study was to look at whether the language that people used before the experience could help us predict any aspects of the experience, be it some aspects of the subjective experience, preparedness, or maybe well-being post-experience. Okay, so here what we did, one way of analyzing this data was to take those emotions that I just showed. These are the same emotions that I just showed you on the previous slide. And we did a principal component analysis. This means that we have grouped emotions into components which co-occur together in the pre-dosing voice notes. And this is just a visualization of what principal component analysis is, just to imagine that all of these are like different emotions that come up, and maybe on the level of a single sentence, if we group them, the clusters that they fall into would be quite obvious. Probably all the positive emotions would be just grouped with positive emotions, but if we look at the section of like entries throughout the whole week, then we can see like for which participants, which clusters of emotions that are sometimes quite different co-occur together. And this gave us some interesting results, which we can see here. And the first component that I would like to point towards is PC1. We can call it positive emotional engagement. So this component includes high loadings for emotions such as excitement, joy, love, caring, pride as well, which is perhaps maybe a positive emotion, maybe an artifact of the model, but generally positive emotions, and gratitude as well. And then low loading for the negative emotions. And then we found that this higher scores for participants in this emotional cluster were actually predictive of two measures that we looked at: psychedelic preparedness and post-experience psychological well-being. So what it means is that people using more positive language or those specific positive emotions that were grouped in this cluster are also more likely to, first of all, score higher on the preparedness scale, and also have better post-experience well-being scores. So that makes sense. That's kind of what we would hope to see if people have a good mindset before the experience. Like, this all fits together into the current theory. It's just nice that we can confirm it with this kind of analysis. However, the second component that came up was a little bit more perhaps surprising. Because here we have reflective integration, that's how we decided to call it. It contains emotions that are both positive and negative, but what is the common theme is that they have this aspect of reflectiveness. So we have emotions such as relief and approval, but also negative emotions such as remorse and embarrassment. And higher scores in this component were predictive of higher emotional breakthrough. This means that, in fact, perhaps there might be different trajectories that we want people to walk through in their psychedelic experiences. Perhaps if we want to design the experience for someone in a way to make them more likely to experience emotional breakthrough, maybe the positive emotions should be there, but also we shouldn't stop them from expressing feelings like embarrassment and remorse in the days leading up to the experience, because perhaps there needs to be something to be resolved in order to experience this breakthrough. So yes, these were the predictive markers in the emotion analysis. And the very final part of the presentation is about the voice. So I think this is quite interesting because it's actually never been done for psychedelics before, not just 5-MeO-DMT, but I think, to my knowledge at least, there hasn't been anyone who has collected, and especially not in this ecologically valid way, voice notes and used those modern libraries to extract vocal features such as pitch and so on. So here what is important in analyzing voice is that there is a lot of individual variability. So we don't want to compare people against each other because that would make no sense. Of course, on average, men's voices are lower than women and so on, and like everyone has their own normal range. So the analysis that I'm going to show you relies on the fact that we define what is a normal range for every participant. This is their mean across all of the recordings, plus minus one standard deviation. And then all of the recordings that fall out of that range, we would mark as those high or low deviations. And then these are just some examples. We don't have to really look into that figure, but you can see that if something is above the green band, then it will be marked with red, high deviation, and blue, low. So we looked at how this looks at the population level, and it was quite an interesting finding that pitch, which is usually related to higher anxiety, has peaked before the experience. So perhaps people were stressed, preparing for 5-MeO, and then those anomaly events have significantly dropped. Then we have another metric, jitter, which is basically variability in pitch. And here we could see sort of opposite pattern where actually the high deviations peaked after the experience, which might mean that participants enter this turbulent state where they're still not quite back to their normal selves yet. There is maybe a lot of integration going on, and the same pattern we could see for shimmer. Shimmer is the variability in loudness. So shimmer and jitter, these two last metrics usually linked with anxiety, actually increased post-experience, even though anxiety didn't increase. So gives us something to think about. And here we are, key takeaways. We can summarize all the information that I just shared with you with just 4 bullet points. And the first one, hopefully you remember by now, 5-MeO DMT shifts language from forward-looking to inward-focused, highlighting greater introspection, insight and meaning-making, and reducing anticipatory emotions and social focus. Second, speech-based monitoring tracks the journey from preparation to integration, capturing changes in language, for example, cognitive and social words, and vocal markers, such as the ones we just discussed, pitch, jitter, shimmer. Pre-dosing language can predict outcomes, as we have seen with the example of the principal component analysis done on the emotions. Perhaps a broader conclusion is that language is in fact a mirror into our inner world, and collecting this data across different studies is a new valuable approach that can complement the usual ways of understanding psychedelic experiences. And of course, we have some limitations of that study. Definitely sample bias. Those people were self-selected and they have a lot of experience with psychedelics. So the results that I just showed you might be very different if we are looking at a population who is depressed or a clinical population. Then there is some context effects. People participating in the same retreat might influence each other's experience that might be different to a clinical setting. And yeah. So we should collect more data in more different populations, experiment with different prompting methods, see what's the difference with an open prompt like we had now, maybe try to guide people to record an entry about something specific. And the goal is to now run a couple of studies similar to that one to develop a very good functioning prototype that we can then hopefully build into an app and deploy more widely and start collecting this data in many studies. So thank you very much.